But then again, maybe he was just doing what Stellantis wanted to be done, and he got cut simply because it wasn't working out. They blamed it on him. I don't know. Are you guys hopeful for the change in executives that are running Jeep now?
I really hope that. I've heard a rumor, and I don't know how true it is, but I heard a really nasty rumor that Jim
Adventure doesn't wait for a cracked windshield. Windshield defense by Racing Optics is like a screen protector for your phone. Triple layer, race tested, and installs in just 20 minutes. Save 20% with code JTS20 at windshieldefense.com. The clear choice. Hi, I'm Tony, and this is the Jeep Talk Show Roundtable episode. We do this every week. We record on Tuesday and publish on Wednesday. So this is, it still has that new show freshness by the time we publish it on Wednesday. So we'd like for you to join us. All you have to do is just go over to xjtalk.com/contact and see how to join us here on the show. 7:30 p.m. Central Time is whenever the pre-show starts. 8 p.m. Central Time is whenever the show proper starts. So let's get it started. Hello, Zoom people.
Good evening.
Hiya.
Hello.
Hello.
Roger's like, yeah, hello. Roger's been here a while. All right, you can be part of our weekly Zoom meeting once again. It's never, you can never be reminded too much about this. It's be part of our weekly Zoom meeting, xjtalk.com/contact to find out how to join. All right, so let's get started. Well, first off, I don't normally do this, but this might be a good thing. Does anybody have anything for the show? Anybody have anything for the group? Questions, comments, something that happened that you want to share? Stunned silence.
$29.95.
That's not sharing. That's making money. All right, so I recently, and you guys may have seen this on our Discord server. If you don't know what the Discord server is, go over to xjtalkshow.com/contact and look for the Discord invite, and you can join us. It's like a 24/7 chat server that we have, part of the Jeep Talk Show community. And you can talk to many of these people that are on here tonight, even the ones poking at their camera. So you may have seen me post on the Discord server about a battery monitor device. Did anybody see that? And I'm just kind of curious about what your comments are on it. Does it look like it's an interesting thing or just a waste of $20?
I looked at it a bit. Just glanced at it briefly. It's pretty interesting. Now, is it for the main battery or will it monitor the
That's
auxiliary
an
battery?
excellent question. I don't know. I don't know if you'd have to do two of them or if it's I don't know how the batteries are connected together. How the battery, and what we're talking about is the secondary battery that comes in the JLs and the JTs for the start-stop functionality of that piece of shit start-stop stuff that came on the JLs and the JTs. So that would be an interesting thing where you can monitor both batteries. I think it might require two devices.
So does it literally give you a history going back so long of what the battery has done?
Yes.
How long of a history does it give you?
I don't know right off the top of my head.
Oh, okay.
I haven't had it a very long time. I'm gonna guess at 30 days. It may have an unlimited history. It may be governed by how much space you have on your phone. This is a telephone app and it's Bluetooth connectivity, so it may or may not connect depending on what part of the house you're in.
I'm just thinking, you'd have a problem with the battery. You go to look at it and it's like, oh shit, it was 8 days ago and it only kept 7 days worth of history.
Well, actually, the app comes up and it checks periodically, and if there's an issue, it tells you. So if the battery voltage drops below a certain percentage or a certain amount, it alerts you to it.
So you plug that into the wall to keep the charge going?
The little device is just something you hook up to your battery, and you drive around with it on there. It's never disconnected unless you just want to disconnect it. So you can monitor your battery while you're driving around. You can monitor your battery while you're in the house. It'll test the charge.
That's what I was wondering if you could monitor while you're driving too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure that thing probably gives you a lot more information, but like I got that Genesis dual battery set up on mine, and the little thing on my A-pillar that if it turns like red, it's down below a certain point. If it's yellow, it's at another point, and then when it's green, it's in the higher range. But as soon as it goes from green to yellow, if the vehicle is turned off, it separates my two batteries.
Yeah, that's nice.
So you always have like if you left something on, you always end up with a battery that you can start the vehicle with, and if you absolutely have to, you can connect the two batteries manually to basically jumpstart yourself.
The batteries are connected. Those two batteries are connected in parallel unless one is disconnected, correct?
Well, yes, they're parallel, not series.
So I guess you could use one of these little monitor devices to hook up to the battery, and it would monitor both batteries. I mean, it would monitor the voltage.
But I mean, you'd want it to. I mean, essentially, you'd want it to only monitor one, not both.
I don't think you'd have a choice when they're hooked up in parallel.
Yeah, well, that's why like the way it's like for charging that dual battery setup, you want to actually flip the switch to on so that it connects the two batteries. Because if you put it like say you put like a tender or whatever on it, and your tender will normally analyze the battery it's getting ready to charge. Well, if the two batteries are separated, and then it's only analyzing the one. And once the voltage gets to a certain point, they reconnect each other. So some chargers will actually like air out because it all of a sudden it's like it changes, the voltage changes. So like when I if I put a tender or a charger on it, I actually have to connect the batteries together so that they're not connecting themselves automatically.
Right. So let's get started with our first question here, which is going to be about batteries. So I think we've all been through this. I learned something using this battery monitor thing. It's a Ancel BM200. They have other models, but I went with the one that was that I saw on online. Some demonstrations of what it did, and I've been very happy with it so far. I only had them for a couple of weeks. Got them on 2 vehicles now, and the third one came in yesterday that I'm going to hook up to the Gladiator. So this, I found out some interesting stuff, which I'll share with you here in a bit, but I'm kind of curious what is it that you know about batteries? So, battery issues, what do you do? Roger, let's start with you. You sounds like you have a nice battery setup, but, generally speaking, on a single battery installation, what do you do whenever you have, what seemed like a hard start situation? We won't say it's a battery issue because it isn't always a battery issue.
So I mean, like, I guess what do you mean, like?
Well, you have a hard start situation.
Like that, or?
You have a hard start situation. What do you do? How do you handle that?
What's your troubleshooting process?
There we go.
Okay, so I mean, I would generally, obviously, disconnect the battery and check the battery. I mean, make sure that the battery's, not a dead short someplace. I mean, I guess when you say hard start, I'm confused by what you mean by hard start.
It doesn't go womp, womp, womp,
it kind of goes
wop, 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 and then, maybe start, but it's like, it's a very slow start.
Oh.
The alternator's having a hard time. The starter's having a hard time turning the engine.
Or it goes click, 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 click.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's
I hate that
battery. I mean, I check all the leads, check the lead, where the connections on the starter, check the connections on the alternator, check the connections on the battery, because I mean, just having corroded terminals can cause that. Having a loose connection can cause that.
Right.
If it's something that happens all the time, like I had a parasitic draw on mine for the longest time, and I think Greg actually turned me on to an easy way to find that, which was using a FLIR camera.
I was just going to say, I was going to be ridiculous and go with the FLIR camera thing because the FLIR cameras are like $2,000.
Actually, no. The one I picked up it connects to my phone. I want to say it was under $100.
Oh, is it? I've eyeballed some that are in the $250 to $300 range that just plugs into the bottom of your phone. Yeah, that's a really cool way. I mean, you can see hot wires, hot fuses, all kinds of stuff. And if the vehicle's been sitting there not running for a long period of time, everything's going to be cold except for the one that has the power running through it.
Yeah, you just got to remember to turn your door lights off, so like when you open the doors, the doors don't light up or your dome light doesn't light up. You want to keep everything as cold as you possibly can without unhooking the battery. So that way, like in the evening hours, that's when I did it. I just walked out there and started looking around with the camera, inspecting my Jeep, and sure enough, it lit up like a Roman candle.
What was it?
The red. I had that remote start thing on my Jeep that was constantly pulling power. That
That's
I
a
got
poor
rid of.
design.
I'm guessing that's the case.
I was thinking it was going to be in that big wad of wire that you had under the hood.
No,
This nest
no.
is hot. All right, so yeah, I mean, it's interesting how I think we all learned from our dad or somebody that told us what to do if you have a hard start issue or a slow start issue or that click, 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 click. But that doesn't always mean it's a battery issue. It could be an alternator issue. It's not charging the battery properly. Could be a dead cell. Could be lots of things. And you mentioned some of the other ones, Roger. How about you, Dan? What do you do when you get into a hard start situation or a battery issue?
He's muted.
It's how long it takes him to realize he's muted.
Is he talking?
Oh yeah, his lips are moving.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I'm fortunate enough where I've got a J case, so it's 2 wires and a battery, none of this fancy crap. But
Yeah, but you still got a
Totally.
computer.
So you're
So
not
I-
under the impression that the battery won't act exactly the same way no matter what vehicle you have, are you?
right. Well, I have normally when my batteries go bad, they kind of go sudden death. But if it does get slow starting, I bought one of those small jump packs,
Right.
which for the life of me, I never knew why I didn't have one before because they are awesome.
Oh yeah.
And the one I have has a voltage meter on it, so I connect it up, and if it's under, if it's 12 volts or under, it's too low. So, but at least I know what the deal is. The jump pack will get me started, and then it's off to get a new battery.
Have you ever gone over to an auto parts place and have them put a battery tester, or I should say electrical system tester, because
It's a load tester, yeah.
because it'll
I
test
have
the
not.
alternator and the battery, kind of like Walmart does.
Yeah, I'm at almost 170,000 miles, and the alternator's original. So,
Well,
For
but
now.
surely you've had an
Thanks for the
alternator go
jinx.
out on you, not necessarily this vehicle, but a past vehicle.
right.
Till tomorrow.
Well, and like even an alternator and a JK, like say the battery's getting overcharged, that the regulator is not actually part of the alternator. So, a regulator would usually would cause like a battery getting overcharged, or maybe just not taking a charge.
Right.
Right.
But the regulator is not part of the alternator; it's part of the computer.
So let me ask you this, and this is for anybody: what battery percentage or voltage level would you think would be that would be too low to start the vehicle properly? In other words, where you would get a slow start situation. So percentage or voltage, either one.
Just guessing, I would say probably somewhere around like the 12.2, 12.3, somewhere in there.
I was thinking of like 10 point something or like 11 point something, personally.
Mhm.
Like on the low side of it all.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of things that'll run at a lower voltage, but when it comes to starting your vehicle, I mean, that's a heck of a draw being pulled off that battery. So
Yeah.
if you don't start somewhere like, in the 12s,
Yeah.
it's going to be in the 10s as soon as you turn the key.
And it's kind of funny too, because we're talking voltage, but really when you start your vehicle, the thing you're really depending on is the current, the amount of amps that are available.
Yeah.
So the voltage going down is an indicator, but it's not a direct reason for the slow start or no start. But the little device that I bought will tell you if the battery's low. If it gets down to what you were saying, Roger, like 12.3, I think the TJ got down to about 62% of charge, and I went out there to try to start it. Started perfectly fine, and I was really surprised. I'd never had a device before that would tell me what the level of the battery was. So I always kind of not a good statement, not an accurate one, but kind of eyeballed it.
Well, and I think that also depends on what kind of battery you're talking about too, because the whole idea of a battery, at 12.3 being at this percentage, it depends on what battery you're talking. Is an AGM, a deep cycle, a lead acid battery? I mean, they're all different. Like AGMs, especially when they charge to a higher point than regular lead acid batteries do.
Does that thing that you bought also tell you the cold cranking amps?
Trying to remember. I don't think so. You can do a start test, and it will tell you. It basically tests the alternator and the battery, the complete system. So I think CCA is on there, but I don't know how it would know it, because this thing is hooked to the poles of the battery, and it doesn't. It's hooked in parallel to the battery, not serial. Because whenever you're checking current, of course, you have to check with it in between, like the positive of the battery and the positive cable, to see how much current is flowing through. Unless you have one of those clamp-on devices, and this thing doesn't have a clamp-on to show you what the field is around the wire. So unsure, Glenn. Okay. Okay, let's go over to Italy Steve. Steve, have you ever had battery issues in your life? And what did you do? What was your solution?
Most of the time, I write on the battery with a pen, like a paint pen, so I know when I replaced them last. And generally, if it's getting out of time, I'll just take it. I go to buy my batteries through Costco because they warranty them. I've gone in there and swapped batteries out that fell short of the warranty. I paid $15 for a new one that was 2 months away from expiring with the warranty. Other times, if it's a newer battery, I'll take it over to like the auto parts stores. They'll hook it up. They'll tell me what's going on. So, have you been in the situation where the alternator was bad? Yeah, actually, I picked up on the JL. It was at 70,000 miles. No, that was the starter. Never mind. The alternator went bad on my Honda Pilot one. It's about 85,000 miles, which was very surprising for a Honda. Mm-hmm. And there's really no way, and anybody correct me on this, there's really no way of knowing if it's the battery or the alternator that's causing the issue unless you have some sort of indicator on your dash. Mm-hmm. Well, you can jump it, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, you can't do like you used to be able to do in the old days. You could check an alternator by just
disconnect the battery.
But now because of all the computers, you can actually wreck shit by doing that.
Yeah.
So I've always heard, and I've tested it this way, is that if you are having problems, you reach down and you feel the side of the battery. If it feels swollen, then it's probably bad. And it's usually the alternator probably overcharging it. So
yes and no.
Might as well replace it both.
You can also have a dead short in the battery that'll cause that too. And if it's a regular lead acid battery, a lot of times you'll smell rotten eggs because when it's venting, it smells like rotten eggs.
Yeah, it's either that or your color converter.
Yeah, usually when it's battery gone bad in one of my cars, it's my wife somewhere that's stranded.
All right, let's jump over to Derek. Derek and Nicole. Derek, you guys have some older vehicles there, at least one older vehicle. Have you ever had any battery issues? And how did you diagnose it? I'm looking for somebody here that's done a little more than taking it to the store and just having it replaced.
Hey, sorry, Tony.
That's all right.
So yeah, our old Jeep actually has a. It's quite funny. We went into Savannah. We were coming back, and I said, "Man, that the battery gauge was actually dropping on us." And I said, "Well, that's not good." I said, "Early, let's hurry up and get home." So we come on to the house. I forgot about it for a couple of days because it's one we drive every day.
Right.
I went out to get in it or something a few days later, cranked it up, drive it around the yard, and all of a sudden one day it wouldn't crank. And so I charged the battery. On the old school, that stuff is super simple, as far as, checking the voltage coming out of the alternator. But we put a new alternator on it and actually just charged the battery, and it was fine. I love the old school stuff. It's super easy. Checking your voltage and all that. And we've got the jump box, we've got the battery tester, the load tester. So we kind of have the things we need to check, but we haven't had any issues with the JL yet. But everything else is old and pretty simple, pretty basic.
Mm-hmm. So whenever you charged the battery and it held the charge, you knew the battery was fine. I'm thinking that's how you knew it was the alternator. I mean, when you were talking about the voltage dropping on the gauge as you're driving it, that's a pretty good indicator that something's not charging the battery. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
you're running off the battery.
Right.
Yeah, then you get the multimeter and check the load coming off the alternator, and I think at the time it was putting out like right at 11.5 or 12 volts or something like that, which is too low because the alternators are usually putting out right at 13.7 to 14.2 or something like that.
Right.
Well, and you can even put your multimeter right on the battery terminals, right on the battery. I mean, when it's if you got to run and get it, make sure the battery's completely fully charged, and then when you start the vehicle, it should jump up.
Correct.
So one of the things that I found, I was always told, and I repeated this several times to a wife and children when they got to be driving age, that if your battery is low, maybe if you don't drive your vehicle often enough to keep the battery charged up, just go out there and start it every so often. It really depends on your vehicle and how much you drive it, how often you need to start it up and let it run. But I was telling them, like go out there and let it run for 15, 30 minutes and you should be fine. Well, with this little device that I hooked up to the battery on the TJ, the TJ was down to 62%. So I thought this was a good opportunity to use the little monitoring device for other things. So I ran those tests that I was telling you about earlier on it, and then I just let it run and let it charge. I varied the RPMs, and if you don't know, if you go to a higher RPM, the voltage coming out of the alternator gets up to normal, like you'd be driving it. And that's really where it's designed to charge the battery. It'll charge it at lower RPMs, but it'll take longer. So anyway, I sat there for 15 minutes charging the battery on the TJ, and I was really surprised. I had only gone from like 62% to 67%. Now, it was fine at 62% to start, so I'm sure it was fine at 67% to start. But I didn't realize it was just it wasn't very much charge. It makes sense in retrospect that, you got to drive it a little bit or got to run it a little while to charge things. Even the trickle charger can take several hours depending on the level of your battery. So anyway, go ahead.
No, it's not only that. I mean, while the vehicle's running, your alternator's putting out, but your vehicle's also using some of that because your vehicle runs off of the alternator, doesn't run off the battery. So you're charging.
That's a good point, but I actually had everything off because that's what you should do whenever you're wanting to charge your battery. Don't run the AC, don't run the radio. Anything you have on there, turn off, and you certainly don't want the headlights on, at least, especially if you have incandescents. So anyway, I decided that I was going to go drive the TJ. My wife needed some gas in her TJ, so I thought I'll just drive over to Sam's and get some fuel. So I drove over there, and I'm monitoring the voltage the entire time, the charge. And by the time I got back home, I was at 87% charge, and it was about 2 miles. I didn't drive any faster than 45 miles an hour, and I did leave it running while I was getting the fuel, so it was charging the entire time from when I left the house. So still not 100%, but acceptable levels. I mean, the 60% was kind of a little nerve-wracking, but I'll learn more as I use this device. And I think that's one of the really cool things about this is that you really don't have, even you have gauges on your dash, it doesn't tell you the whole story.
My father-in-law recently had a battery go bad just because of the fact that he'd start his truck up and he on a regular basis he'd only drive like 5 miles.
Yeah.
And then shut it off. And the battery went dead and he couldn't figure out why. And I'm like, well, it's because you're never really charging the battery back up.
That's right.
That little bit that you're running at 15 minutes in your driveway, a 10-minute drive, that's not enough to bring your battery all the way back up. I mean, it takes quite a bit of juice out of a battery just to start a vehicle, especially if it's an older vehicle that takes, a fair amount of cranking to get it started.
Mm-hmm. It may be be an old alternator. I'm sorry, I said it again. An old starter, because a starter can drag things down.
Yeah.
Anybody ever noticed you change the starter and you go, wow, this thing starts really fast now?
Yeah. Well, that's when you went from the old starters to the gear reduction starters. And they use the same amount of power and put out twice the amount of torque.
All right, I see Travis is here. Travis, have you had any battery issues? And was it the battery, the alternator, or yes? Travis is turning down the game. All right, let's go over to Mike. Mike, how about you? Surely, I should say, you've had battery issues.
I've had the alternator go on my last Jeep, but I also had a bad battery too that ended up being under warranty.
Mm-hmm.
In like a year and a half of having the battery, it wouldn't start the Jeep up at all. So luckily I had one of the jump packs to get it started up and get out of the hunting camp I was at down to the other zone and swapped it out and all. So
does everybody know that a bad alternator can cause a battery to go bad?
That's what happened to me with my when my alternator went. When they replaced the alternator, they didn't replace the battery, and went out to get it to take it home, wouldn't start. It killed the battery in the process too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does it kill the battery just because it's leaving it at a lesser voltage more often?
I think it's usually, especially the alternators that have the
regulator.
Yeah, the regulator built into them. Well, the regulator goes bad, and then it overcharges the battery, and it just damages it. I think that seems right. I don't know if you still have those situations now with the regulator inside the CPU, the ECU.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably less common because it's more computerized.
Right.
Yeah. With my the one with the alternator was in my 09 Wrangler, and I had just enough power from the battery to pull off to the road, and that I think didn't help the battery at all in the process.
Right.
Yeah.
I always wondered why it is that your alternator is bad when you're driving home at night or driving someplace at night. And I realized you just notice it because the headlights are dim. Yeah. When you're driving around during the day, you just don't notice it at all.
Yeah. I left my phone at home charging on top of it all. Of all things. Head to the old walk up to the house there, knock on the door and ask, "Hey, can I use your phone to call for help?"
You hear a loud noise, and then you hear somebody say, "Stop or I'll shoot."
Yeah. I made sure I stood back after I knocked from the door and all that. But yeah.
I think that begs another question. How much load is on today's alternators now that everything's running LEDs?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Well, LEDs require a lot less power than incandescents.
Yeah.
But now we have so many other trinkets and gadgets. I mean, it's probably a wash.
I don't think so. I think that things have gone. A lot of things require much less power than much less current than what they used to. So I think you get a lot more mileage out of a 250 amp alternator than you did 20 years ago.
Yeah, but now you got two. Oh, sorry, a little close. Yeah, but now you're. Hey,
it's time to trim those nose hairs.
So, hey, what the hell? You should see my ears.
Oh, no, what the hell's wrong with that? The hair stops on the head and starts on the ears. It's not
right?
fair.
Look at that. Yeah. No, so but you say that with the alternators, but now we're also running, these auxiliary batteries that the alternator's having to charge back up to, and way more electronics with the ECM and the PCM and the TCM and all these different computer modules that's actually storing more power too. So the alternators are having to work, probably double time compared to what they used to as well.
I don't know the answer to that. I think it's the opposite way. I wish Henderson was here. We'd ask him. Henderson would know for sure. Henderson would be the tiebreaker.
Well, especially if there's all the wiring out.
Yeah, and I don't know the amperage of the YJ alternator versus the amperage of the JL alternator.
Probably higher, I would have to believe.
My XJ alternator is 90 amps.
Yeah, I think isn't the JK? I want to say the JK is almost like 200 or around there.
I think it's probably 100 and something. My Gladiator with the max tow package, not a tow package, but the max tow came with a 250 amp alternator, which was significantly more than what came on the Gladiator. I really like that. But I don't know. I get the feeling that it just doesn't pull as much nowadays. I mean, yeah, you're throwing in an ECU, but I don't think the computer pulls that much current.
But why would you need a battery or an alternator of such a higher amperage on a newer one versus I'm saying on a newer one versus an older one, unless there's just less draw. I mean, there's less wiring altogether in an older vehicle compared to a newer vehicle. I would think that a newer vehicle probably pulls more than an older vehicle was.
It's interesting. That's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to that. I just have my opinion, my feels.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to Greg earlier, and it's funny. You were talking about that with we were talking about the YJL build, and he said he pulled out 250 pounds of wiring out of it.
I remember that.
So you got that much more current and electricity going through this entire vehicle. Versus the YJ, I think he said, and he probably put a painless wiring harness or something like that on it, but it was, it went from 220 pounds to 20 pounds.
Then you got analog dashboards versus digital.
So I just looked it up on Google, whether or not it's right or not, Tony. Right. I don't know, but it says new vehicles tend to have a higher amp draw, especially when idle, due to the increased number of electronics modules and systems that require power. Older vehicles with fewer electronics and components generally have a lower amp draw.
Well, I guess there's more sensors, like what is the sensor that tells you when there's somebody's you're changing lanes and somebody's in your lane, and there's other sensors for all kinds of things.
Well, that in your computer is constantly communicating with a lot of these sensors. It's like back and forth constantly,
Yeah, even all your gauges are electrical versus, our old gauges in the YJ are mechanical gauges. So
I remember my Nova, I had an oil pressure gauge. I didn't want any electric stuff. I wanted the oil going to the gauge. So I actually had that nylon hose running to the gauge. I want to know exactly what the oil pressure was. Hey, Jeepers, Tony here from the Jeep Talk Show. You know how you protect your phone screen with a protector? Now you can do the same thing for your Jeep, Bronco, Ineos, or G-Wagon. Windshield Defense by Racing Optics is a triple-layered, race-tested solution that installs in under 20 minutes, right at home or with your local installer. Made in the USA and trusted for over 25 years, it keeps your view crystal clear and your windshield safe from rock, debris, or whatever the trail throws your way. Don't let a rock end your ride. Protect your windshield, protect your story, and keep the adventure rolling. And now save 20% with code JTS20 at windshieldefense.com. That's windshieldefense.com, promo code JTS20. Born from racing.
So I looked it up. The TJ alternator had 117 amps, and the JK went up to 160.
Well, I think there's different versions of the JK one too, if I remember right.
This is extreme terrain. It's just extreme terrain replacement.
One of the upgrades you can do is the Dakota alternator.
Durango, isn't it?
Is it what now?
I know it's the Durango gearbox, steering box.
Maybe it's the Durango, but it's either Dakota or Durango. But you can put.
I think you can put either one. I think the Durango or the Dakota. At least on the XJ, you could use either one of those.
Yeah, you can use either one. But if you pick the Durango or the Dakota, there's a really oddball one that's with a plow package, and that one's the best.
Greg, you were 18 minutes late. We needed your expertise a few minutes ago.
I'm right here. What do you need?
So what pulls more current? Is it like a YJ, for example, or the new JL?
The new JL.
Really? And why is that?
Yeah. Because the YJ has 14 pounds of electronics and the JL has 230 pounds of electronics.
And would you say, I mean, to me, the computer is going to be probably the largest item that draws power over the starter. Do the sensors pull a lot of power? I don't know where the current draw is coming from.
Well, it's not just the sensors. You've got a million sensors. You have radio and amplifiers and speakers and the ABS system. The traction control system. The global positioning system.
But do those really pull very, very much current? I wouldn't think that would be especially because they're basically sitting idle most of the time.
They're never idle. Every one of them is functioning.
Constantly talking.
Interesting.
Yeah, every one of them is constantly talking. In fact, the communication loop just between the gas pedal and the computer, right? It goes from gas pedal to computer to throttle body to gas pedal to computer to throttle body before it initiates. And at the same time, it's also talking with the traction control system and also talking with the ABS, right? But everything is in constant communication on the newer vehicles.
Don't some of the sensors, like even the gas pedal, I think it doesn't just read it once. It reads it like several times before it actually does something.
Yeah, so the gas pedal reads like 3 or 4 times before it actually makes a thing.
Change.
So it's multiple times a second. Where like an old school YJ has a set of headlights and a set of tail lights and
has a cable that runs to the throttle body. Yeah.
Right. So there's just so much more going on. And that's why, like, if you look at a YJ, some of them they had, and I forget all the different amps, but I think they even had a 40 amp alternator, some of them, right? They had very, very, very small, where these new things are all 200 amp and 160 amp. And they just use a lot more electricity.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look at a JL. If you go out and you buy a brand new JL and you park it in the garage and you don't drive it for 2 weeks, the battery's dead.
What?
So
just from parasitic draw.
Yeah, just from the parasitic draw. Usually within a couple weeks, the JLs they won't even start. Boltman just had that problem. He called me 3 nights ago, Saturday night. He hadn't driven his 392 in 9 days, and it wouldn't start.
So
and it's 100% bone stock.
I think you just all jinxed me.
I actually started this roundtable tonight talking about a new device that I bought. It's an Ancel BM200 battery monitor, or really electrical system monitor. I thought it was really neat. Saw it on the TikTok or YouTube, one of the two. $20, got one. You hook it up to the battery, and it allows you to communicate between your phone and your battery, your electrical system, and it tells you percentage charge. You can check the start and various things with it. And I thought, man, this is just the no-brainer. $20. I think it was actually 25. And just kind of curious, do you have any opinions about these devices? I don't know if you've run across something like this. Basically, it's a battery monitor, inline battery monitor that you can use all the time.
Yeah, even like S-Pod had one built into their system that Bluetoothed with your phone. It's a phenomenal thing, especially for people who love technology. You know, you don't have to go out in the garage. You don't have to hook up a charger. You don't have to hook anything up, right? You can just pull your phone out and see what your car's doing.
Right.
I've had Dometic fridges for several years. Well, I think the first Dometic fridge I got was in 2018, but even the Dometic fridge, right? It communicates with my phone and it tells me what the charge of the vehicle charge is. So I've been able to do that with my Dometic fridges for years because it communicates with my phone and tells me what the charge rate is of the battery on the vehicle. So I 100%, I hate, and I hate to say it this way, but I hate all the modern technology, but I also find it very, very comforting at times too. Like,
yeah, it's useful.
You know, when that Dometic used to always be in the back of Frankenbrute, even if it was on the back of the property, I knew what the charge of the battery was. So I see the good points and I see the bad points. The beauty of that is that if you actually check it, or if you set up, I don't know if that one's fancy enough to set up an alert, so it will actually alert.
It checks
so if it alerts
you.
Yeah. Yeah, if it tells you, oh no, your battery's at 11.4, right? Then you know it's time to put on a charger or start the car. So.
You know, I think one of the things that probably kills batteries more than anything, I mean, other than like faulty wiring and stuff like that, but is people like my wife that have to drive. Well, no, I don't mean it that way, but she only drives like 2 miles to work. So she starts it up, she drives to work 2 miles and parks it. You know, nowhere near enough time to charge the battery. Then she does the same thing when she comes home. So that battery is constantly getting drawn down, and then the battery sulfication on it. So.
Does she at least let the car warm up before she drives it?
In the wintertime, but she's not very good at that in the summertime. It's start, leave,
Oh yeah, you got places to go, man. People to see.
That's terrible for battery.
It's terrible for your engine.
Well, that too.
Your engine. So, I wish I had. I mean, there's an example over here. There's an engine, but warming up your car is one of the most important things you can do for your engine. And I know that there's naysayers out there that say they're wrong, but it's not. You've got a cast iron block and an aluminum piston, and you have all these different metals, and they need to come to operating temperature before you're mean to them, before you're driving down the street or anything else. Because if you have a steel ring on an aluminum piston, that ring isn't going to normalize or have the right grip against your cylinder wall until the entire engine's at operating temperature. So you're burning oil, you're scoring your engine block, you're doing all these things by not letting your car warm up. You should turn it on and let it come to full operating temperature before you drive. And it doesn't matter if it's summer or winter or fall, or it doesn't matter. Just let it come to temperature. They did a test at Jeep. I want to say it was 2004 when I was privy to the test, because I was just getting really good friends with those guys. But they did a test in 2004 where they took one, and it was surprisingly a straight 6. But one, they would start and they'd let it run and rev through all the things, and these are attached to dynos. And the other one, they would start, they'd let it idle, and they'd come up. And the one that they would start it and immediately drive it or simulate driving ended up with like 80,000 miles less of a lifespan than the one that they let warm up.
Yeah.
That's a big lifespan,
Well, and even so, when it comes to the battery portion, I mean, even just if she was to start it and let it warm up and then drive it to work, I mean, just going a couple miles to work, even that isn't enough to put back in the battery what the vehicle's taken out of it to start and drive that far. I don't think that's enough.
Let's leave it running, Roger.
No, it's enough, right? 2 miles of driving, right? So that's, depending on her speed, it's at least 3 or 4 minutes of driving that she's doing.
That's not enough to put back into the battery.
It is, because when you start it, you probably lose, let's say your battery's at perfect health and it's running at 12.4. When you crank it over, especially on new cars, fuel injection, the crank over is probably going to take like 0.2 or 0.3% of the battery, or 0.2 or 0.3 of 1 volt out. When you're driving, it's running at 14.4 pretty consistently, or somewhere right around 14 volts when you're driving. So
but only a fraction of that's going back into the battery. The rest, a lot of that's being used to drive the vehicle, to operate the vehicle.
No, most of it's going back into the battery. So to drive your vehicle, you only need a couple volts.
Right.
So like you'll notice when you start it, let's say now if she turns every fucking thing on, right? If she's got her radio cranked and her headlights on high and she's touching the brake pedal, if she's doing all that, now she's using more of the charge. But just the actual running of the engine, it doesn't take very much.
Well, even you gave that scenario with your little tester thing, Tony, that you said you let it run for so long and then drove it down the road, and it only went from 60-some% to 80%.
Yeah, it's like 67%. It went up 10%. I think it was like 67 to 87% after driving it 4 miles. So, but yeah. So it just dawned on me, many of the, especially the more modern Jeeps, and you can always add this to your Jeep, have remote start. Not so much fun with an automatic transmission. I'm sorry, with a standard transmission. Well, it depends on your definition of fun, I guess. But the automatic transmissions, the remote start, you could actually, maybe you're fixing your coffee before you're going to get in your vehicle to leave. Remote start that vehicle up, let it run. Now you're not sitting there in the vehicle letting it warm up. You let it warm up while you're doing the other things. You could almost say it's multitasking, if I believed in multitasking, which I don't.
And remember, there's a lot of naysayers that say you do not need to let it warm up, but and that's true for all these new modern people who get a new car every 2 years or 3 years.
That's what I was thinking. And also too, if they're selling vehicles, they would like for you to not warm your vehicle up.
Yeah, they're not looking at the entire lifespan of the vehicle. They're just looking at the couple of years they own it.
Right.
But no, I totally agree with you, especially like even with the airplane. I mean, it's you don't wait. I don't leave it until my airplane hits 165 degrees because it's what you're talking about, like a cast this versus aluminum that. I mean, they don't expand and heat up at the same rate, so you got to give it time for everything to get expanded and everything to be seated and nice and tight again.
Yeah, kind of hard to pull over to the side of the road in an airplane. So you want to make sure everything's perfect with the airplane.
You can. You just good luck getting that going.
But Roger, is that really an airplane or is that just a kite with a motor on it?
There we go.
To each his own.
Hey, you get to fly, damn it, and nobody else does, so fuck them.
And if Roger had wheels, he'd be a grandma. I got it. I heard that joke. All right, so let's jump over to our next one, and I think we're going to go to. I don't think Glenn's been in this yet. Maybe he has. Glenn. So
Yes.
Changing gears here. Are you concerned about Jeep? The brand and the future of Jeep.
Yes, it's concerning on the price of the vehicles nowadays, and I think that all came from when Fiat took over.
Mm-hmm.
They're just they're thinking that they're making a luxury vehicle, and they're losing their baseline of the people who actually take them off road.
Kind of forgot who the main people are that buy Jeeps, I think.
Yeah, they have. Not even counting all the pavement princesses that put the 24-inch tires with low profiles on them and just go to shows and stuff. I just think they've lost touch, and I think it's probably because it's not American owned.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you.
But Greg has mentioned it before. I mean, what's the actual percentage of people that buy Jeeps to take them off road?
Less than 7%.
Yeah, so their market is those people that they want the bougie.
Yeah, less than 7% actually use the vehicle for what it was built for. But Glenn is also 100% right. Like I was on the phone call today with the old head of JL production and a few other things. He's also the father of the Rubicon. His name is Jim Rep. And all of the original Lunatic Fringe guys and all the original Jeep people who actually loved Jeep and the brand, they're all gone. There's not one of them left within Jeep. So Jim Rep and Jim Allen were two of the last ones, or Mark Allen were two of the last ones. And then when we lost Jim Morrison, when Jim Morrison left, because he was a true Jeep person, they're all gone. And even Brandon Gurmis, Brandon Gurmis is the guy who launched the Gladiator. He is no longer under the Jeep brand. So all of the original people who love Jeep for what it is, none of them are there anymore. And we have a couple holdouts, like you've got, Jeff Pratt and Jim Allen, but they're not with Jeep directly. They're with subsidiaries that are doing other things, right? They're with JPP, which is Jeep Performance Parts, and other companies. They're not direct with Jeep. So, even Jim Rapp, who's the father of the Rubicon, he's worried about it, just like we are.
So I don't know if any of you, Greg, anybody else have any information on this, or maybe an opinion. They've changed the Jeep leadership. They got rid of Tavares, which I think was an excellent idea, and I think where the main problem was. But then again, maybe he was just doing what Stellantis wanted to be done, and he got cut simply because it wasn't working out. They blamed it on him. I don't know. Are you guys hopeful for the change in executives that are running Jeep now?
I really hope that. I've heard a rumor, and I don't know how true it is, but I heard a really nasty rumor that Jim Morrison might be going back. I don't know if it's true or not.
That wouldn't be bad. That wouldn't be bad, Greg. I would like that.
No, I would love that. And just for the simple fact that he was a true Jeep guy, right? He understood the how and the why, and he understood both sides of it. He understood from the luxury side, from the 93% of people who buy Jeeps, but he also understood us 7%. And that's really, really important.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So whoever they get, whether he goes back or not, I really hope that they do the right thing. Otherwise, I mean, honestly, I don't care. I'll just keep buying old Jeeps, right?
That's what I was going to say. I mean, if you have to, you don't buy a brand new one.
I bought this weekend. I bought that Grand Cherokee.
That's a yuppie mobile.
Oh, WJ.
It's a 2000. It has 120,000 original miles, and it has a V8. And I picked it up for a song and a dance this weekend. We're putting new brakes on it right now, but I can buy these all day long. In fact, I could buy, let me do the math. Shit. I don't know. I could buy 40 of these before buying a brand new 392. So, and I don't know the exact math because I don't want to do it in my head, but no, actually I could buy 50 of these before buying a 392. And this is a V8 and it's solid axle. And if I wanted to off-road it, I can make this just as capable as any JL for under 10 grand, right? So I can keep buying these old Jeeps. Now this one's not mine, but
and it's got better wheelbase.
Yeah, I'll always be a Jeep person no matter what. And I still, right, I'm a holdout. I haven't owned a JL yet. And I don't really want to. I can buy these old things, right? I can take a TJ and turn it into a two-door truck. I can take a Grand Cherokee and make it a beast. I can take a Cherokee and make it a beast for a tenth the cost of a brand new Wrangler.
On that Grand Cherokee, have the valve seats pre-dropped? Are they that they already dropped and been replaced, or are you waiting for that to happen?
What, on the 318?
Yeah, I don't know a lot about those things. I just know the V8s have a situation where if you overheat them, the valve seats will drop and you'll drop a valve.
Oh, yeah, it's possible. No, this one's never been overheated. It's never had any. In fact, the guy I got it from, he was the original owner, and he had the entire service record printout.
Oh, wow, nice.
So everything that's ever been done to it, he had on a piece of paper. And he even had, it was like a month ago, he brought it to the dealership for a checkup. And they gave him his newest printout. So to be able to buy something like that for $2,000 or less, why not?
That had to hurt selling it. I mean, with all that attention and all those years.
Yeah. And then this one, I drove it today. So you guys have been along since the start of this. I drove it on the highway today for the first time. And I'll tell you what, that engine was worth every penny. So, so that engine is definitely not cheap, right? It was $13,500, but it's disgusting how much torque and horsepower it has compared to a normal TJ.
And it's a straight six. It's the 4.0 liter.
Yep, it's a straight six. Makes 302 horsepower and 350 foot-pounds of torque, and it doesn't matter. So last week on Friday, I had it at the tuner, and they went through all the tuning of it. I drove it today. I drove it to and from the parts store. Literally ear-to-ear smile every time I shifted gears. And I wasn't being mean to it, right? So I've got to do the whole break-in procedure before I'm ever mean to it. But the whole vehicle, when you take off, just torques up like crazy. Nice. Every time you shift gears. And it sounds, the exhaust note on it's really cool. Like it sounds like a fucking race car. So,
is that a cast iron head or is it aluminum head that's on there?
No, this is an original cast iron Tuppy head.
Okay.
So this one, the owner of this was very particular, and he wanted a numbers matching engine. So
nice.
The engine that's in this was the original engine from the vehicle, and we shipped it, and it was built. But it still has the factory Tuppy head, which is a very, very good head. It's just newcomer, reworked it.
Do they port and polish, or do you do that with the 4.0s? I've heard both ways.
Yeah, he goes through everything. If you go on Newcomer Racing on Facebook or YouTube and watch some of their videos, he does some pretty cool stuff. But I'll tell you, it's so smooth. It's not like some other strokers that I've ridden in, but it's very, very smooth. The power to weight ratio is amazing. Once I get a little bit further into it, I'll be pretty impressed. I wouldn't, and I'll test it. Probably once I get about 500 miles on it, I'll test it. But I'll bet you this will do a whole 4-wheel tire rolling burnout all through first, second, third gear. I'll bet you I'll be doing 50 miles an hour before the tires stop spinning.
Well, anything that'll trash those wheels and get some proper ones on there, I say do it. All right, so let's go over to I had somebody picked out. Rick hasn't been on the main show here. We were talking to him before the show. Rick, are you concerned about Jeep, the brand, and their future? You're probably not with your TJ.
I'm not that worried about it because, I got a TJ. I just flip it over, put new AA batteries in it, and go down the road. I had a kind of an interesting conversation this week with, kind of on this subject. I was scrolling through the TikTok and came across this whole group of Jeepers all in this live thing. They're all talking and everything. So, I hopped in and got to talking to them, and none of them, well, I think one of them, he was down in Florida and he did some mudding, but all the rest of them, it was all about going to, their big event is the Great Smoky Mountain Jeep Invasion. All right. And that's all they were about. And they were talking about, one had spent like 15 grand in DS8 speaker systems and all this stuff. And so, I'm just kind of talking to him and saying,
it's a different world, isn't it? It's just so far in. Yeah.
But, just talking to them and their excitement, enthusiasm about the Jeep and everything, not any different, they all love their Jeeps and everything, and so, and I told them, I was like, well, you guys keep doing what you're doing, because as long as you're buying Jeeps, it's gonna keep the whole thing going. But
there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with you enjoying your Jeep differently. It's a foreign thing to those of us that like taking them off road.
And I asked a couple of them, I said, would you consider taking and they were like, oh no, no.
Are you insane? Like, I wouldn't take my $70,000 vehicle and scratch it.
Yeah, and it was all about their paint jobs and their shiny whatnots, and everything was all about that, and the dudes too. It wasn't just a lady. There was one lady, and she had, I don't know how many thousands of dollars she had put into herself. She started opening up doors on this Jeep, and there were speakers in every possible place you could put a speaker. Big speaker. Not little speakers, big speakers. And I think her name was like Pure Energy or something like that on there. But her whole thing is she had lost her son, and her son was a big audio nerd.
Right.
And he was into that. So that's kind of her way of honoring him, and he liked Jeeps, if I remember right. And so that's how she's got this Jeep, and that's what she does with it. And she's not interested in going off road at all. Her big thing is going to the Great Smoky Mountain Jeep Invasion, and I thought it was kind of,
I have a theory about that. I think that when people get off road, I think that it changes them. I think that they go, oh my God, I didn't realize this Jeep could do that. And I mention that not because I want you to be along with my way of thinking. I mention that to you guys out there because if you are of that mindset of, well, I could never take my Jeep off road, find somebody to go with, find a group or something, and make sure they understand that you're new, you don't want to damage anything, and just try it. You will be amazed. I think you reflect that same feeling, Rick.
Yeah. And talking about your battery thing, since I baptized my TJ, my voltage meter hasn't worked. So I was like, hey, I think I'll order that and check it out. And it does say it will keep 30 days of history. You can actually, it says it supports multiple devices. Now, I don't know if that's the app or talking about more than one battery. And you can actually download all of your stuff. You can export it into Excel if you wanted to.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can keep more than 30 days. That's a good point. I knew about the XL thing. You can export the data, and it supports multiple batteries and multiple battery types like AGM, lead acid, and there's another one I think that I can't remember.
It tells you more than just the voltage in amps. It also tells you the temperature of your battery.
That's true. It does.
I was like, well, that's kind of different. But anyway,
$25. I was amazed. And you can connect it and just use it ever so often, but the simplest thing to do is you just install it and it's just there. And yes, it does draw power, but I think it's like 0.5 milliamps or something whenever it's just sitting idle. So it's well below the 40 milliamp range, which I think is the acceptable parasitic draw 50. Now. Is it 50?
Yeah.
All right. But anyway, I bought it because my voltage my voltmeter doesn't work right now, and I figure, hey, I've been looking for some way to monitor that. So, it's cheap enough, and if it works, then good deal.
Do you know it also tracks trips? So just keep that in mind before your wife gets a hold of the XL. Just don't lie to start with. You'll be okay.
Oh no.
All right, so let's jump over to let's try Travis again. Is Travis still there? Travis, his microphone is unmuted. I think he's ready to talk.
I'm back.
The game must be over.
No games tonight. I was just running around the house earlier when you called on me. Jeep, they're not going anywhere. They're going to have bumps in the roads and haters at some point in time or another, or different things. But it is an established brand that, again, with even the old Jeep draw, it's going to keep living. They the YJ came out, which I fell in love with and love my square headlights, but will get beaten on by other people because, it wasn't the round headlights and it was different. But there's still always going to be a draw. Someone's going to like it, whether you do or not is a different story. And they may lose some aspects, but the reality of it is the Rubicon, the Moab, those do draw people because, again, they think it's the best of the best, even though they may never go off-road or do any, desert racing. They're going to pick it up and they're going to buy it. And then there's always the aftermarket game that will always build it up to be what it needs to be or what it could potentially be. And the aftermarket's, a multi-billion-dollar industry. We asked Greg himself,
$32 billion last year.
$32 billion. I mean, it's $1 billion.
Greg is waiting for his cut.
I'm not picky, just $1 billion. I'll take $1 billion. That's
So Jeep's gonna be there.
I like the way you think, Travis. And I certainly hope you're correct. I'm a little concerned about how this full self-driving is coming out with Tesla. I think that's really going to cause the market to really demand full self-driving on any vehicle that's sold, and I think it's going to happen. I just think I'm concerned about really all the manufacturers.
I wouldn't worry about that much. Did you see that last week? Everything that we did with SEMA actually worked.
Oh yeah, I did.
The EV mandate was shut down.
I didn't realize that Congress could shut it down in California. I thought the states could do what they wanted to do pretty much. I thought that was very interesting. Yeah, so the 2030, I think, requirement to be all electric vehicles in California.
Shut down.
Yes. Yeah, I mentioned that in one of the episodes. I even mentioned you, Greg, about SEMA. You going into Washington, D.C. and threatening people. So it worked.
Yep. Yeah, it's amazing. So, and I know that you interviewed her, but Karen Bailey Chapman, she's definitely the Mifwick behind that. And all hats are off to her that she put together such a good campaign and got it shut down.
Yeah, that was a fun interview.
She does some awesome stuff, man.
That's great. I like to see it when the good guys win for a change. I had not heard about Jim Morrison talking about good guys. I would really like to see that happen. I mean, if it's good for Jim, I don't want Jim being back in something that's a shithole position where he can't affect change, which I think is kind of what it managed going to. And yeah, Jim's a good guy. He's a real Jeeper, and I like the idea of real Jeepers being the ones that are building my Jeeps. All right. Well, this is another interesting roundtable episode. I would really like for more people to join and get in here and get their voices in. Damn it, Garrett, I was going to call on you, but we ran out of time. You got to call on Garrett. Garrett has lots of things to say, but you got to call on him. He doesn't jump in there like some of the rest of us do. All right.
Sorry.
So you can submit your questions for the roundtable. Just go to xjtalk.com/contact to find out how. All right, everyone, that's a wrap for this week's Jeep Talk Show Roundtable. A big thank you to all of our Zoom participants. You guys make this so much fun and informative every week. And I'm not just saying that. It really is true. Really do enjoy the things that you have to say. And you don't always agree with me, which means I get an opportunity to learn something. So remember, you can join us again next Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Central Time, for more Jeep Talk, random questions, and always a few rabbit trails. Don't forget to visit the xjtalk.com/contact to find out how you can be part of the conversation. And that includes being part of the Jeep Talk Show community, the family, through Discord, emails, the podcast, whether it be video or audio. Oh yeah, I need to try to say this. Greg does it so well. Greg, do the thing about what you're supposed to say on YouTube.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Anything and everything Jeep Talk Show related. Whether it's here on YouTube or on Facebook or Instagram, just like, comment, share, and subscribe, because we don't know what you're thinking unless you let us know.
Wow, that's professional. You guys have a great...
short-winded as Greg's ever been.
You guys have a great week. We'll see you next Tuesday and publish the show on Wednesday, every Wednesday. See ya.
Broadcasting since 2010.
You're my friend. You're my new friend.